Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're returning to Strategic Command World War I. It is December 19th of 1914. We are several months into the war. The British and French have declared war on Belgium, shockingly, and the German forces on the Western Front have largely remained static, although we have launched some attacks against the French. We have taken some casualties against the French. Primarily, we have been just making sort of selective occasional attacks where it looks like we can destroy an enemy corps for morale purposes, and we've been largely remaining on the defensive in the Western Front, although this whole situation in Belgium kind of changes things a little bit, where now we have a much larger front to defend, and it also potentially poses an opportunity where the enemy isn't quite as dug in as they were previously. Nonetheless, the French and British have not yet subdued the Belgians. The Belgians have an infantry corps still, the 2nd Corps near Ypres. They have 2 infantry detachments, one at Antwerp in some fortifications there, another one dug in, linking the troops at Antwerp and Ypres. I don't even know how to pronounce that. And then a headquarters unit behind them. That's what's left of the Belgian army. There's also a Liège detachment, which is withdrawn out of the fortifications of Liège to make room for the German 7th Reserve Corps, which has moved in to that corner of Belgium. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Front, the Russians have been largely held at bay against the Austrians. In fact, there's a couple of spots where Austrian territory is still held by the Russians, but not very many. Chernowitz here on the southeastern corner is still at the border of Russia. Tarnopol is kind of right along the border of Russia and Austria, and there's been a lot of fighting around there. The Galician oil fields are still in Austro-Hungarian hands, and the Austrians have even advanced into sort of the territory or the border region of Russia at Luhansk, and they have also advanced into what is today modern-day Poland, taking various cities and towns, and also cutting off some 15 Russian infantry corps in a very thinly held pocket to the west of... Is this Warsaw? What city is this? No, to the west of Brest-Litovsk. A huge Russian pocket of about 15 infantry corps is cut off. Although we don't have the force to reduce the pocket, we do at least have them currently cut off, and hopefully over the next couple of turns we can hold them in place and slowly wear them down. But we'll see if we actually have the strength to maintain this pocket. If we do, that would be the equivalent of probably destroying 2 to 3 Russian armies, which would be a huge deal. It would potentially change the course of the war. If we actually take a look at the reports, when we take a look at the land unit strength, the Russians have some 48 units, 15 of them being cut off. That's almost a third of their entire army is right here in this pocket in western Poland, in and around Warsaw. I'm not super optimistic about my ability to reduce the formation, but I guess we'll end up seeing if that's something we can do. We've also driven into the Baltic states area. We've taken the city of Riga. There are several Russian units out here that could threaten to retake us or retake their territory over here, but it has been a little bit of a blow, at least to Russian morale, and you can see Russian morale is down to 74%. If we can win in the early war in the east, then I don't think the Western allies have any chance, but it remains to be seen. Meanwhile, on the Serbian front, we have taken the city of Belgrade. We've taken the 2nd Serbian capital at Niš here just this last turn, and we're driving on what will likely be the 3rd Serbian capital down at Uskeb, down here in the southernmost reaches of Serbia. We're also at war with Albania and Montenegro. Both of these capitals are currently outside our reach, although we will presumably get to work reducing them once we knock Serbia out of the war. The Bulgarians are threatening to join the war on the side of the Central Powers, so that would give us some additional strength. The Ottomans have not yet joined the war, and the Italians have made some initial threats to join the war, but they haven't yet joined the war either. And that's the situation as we move into the last week of December and our next turn, which will be in the first week of January of 1915. So we're going to go ahead and end the turn, and we will see what happens. Serbian morale falls due to the loss of Niš. The Serbian government moves their capital to Uskeb in the southernmost reaches of the Serbian kingdom. Kaiser Franz Joseph. Nationalist figures in Italy are calling for war against us unless we hand over the areas of Trento and Trieste to Italy. Transfer of the territory they are demanding would include the city and port of Trieste and the towns of Trento, Brunec, and Gors. However, if we were to give these places to Italy, then this would massively reduce Italy's desire for war against us. Would you like to transfer Trento and Trieste to Italy? Agreeing to transfer Trento and Trieste will not only reduce our economy, but doing so will be deeply unpopular. Indeed, such a move would be met with massive opposition from our own population, and it would have a huge negative impact on our nation's morale. Nevertheless, doing so will almost certainly end Italy's motives to enter the war, enabling us to devote all our attention to fighting the Russians and Serbians. So this is an interesting decision, right? We can choose to, and I think we'll take a look at the map, we can choose to hand over Trieste and Trento, where's Trento? I don't even see Trento on here. Trento over here, Trieste, Graz. This area here along the border with Italy would be transferred away. I think we'd still hold on to Polo, which is our major naval base here. But it would be a big accommodation to Italy, but it would also be highly unpopular for our population. And so for that reason, I think I'm going to choose no, although it's an interesting option that could have appeased the Italians and kept them out of the war. That being said, choosing no does trigger garrisons to be raised in Trento, Klagenfurt, and Trieste. Bulgaria, meanwhile, is continuing to take an increasing interest in the events in Serbia, and Bulgaria is preparing for war, which is good because I think they're preparing for war on the side of the Central Powers. Meanwhile, the Anzacs are arriving in England. Volunteers from the U.S. are heading to Serbia to help it fight for its own independence. The typhus epidemic continues to spread through Serbia, hurting some Montenegrin forces. Entente naval units are blockading imports to Germany in the North Sea. Fighting on the Western Front ceases on Christmas Day, the Christmas Day truce. Scientists in the Ottoman Empire recording progress in logistics. The Ottoman Empire collects 148 MPP. They're up to 76% mobilization. They were at 38 a couple turns ago. Austria-Hungary gets 304 MPP, and Germany gets 365 MPPs. Still getting food and supplies through the Netherlands, by the way. I think the British began cracking down on that later in the war, so I wonder if we'll end up seeing something similar happen on our front. Meanwhile, we're going to see what the Allies do here, what the Entente does here in January of 1915. It is now January 2nd of 1915. Russian troops shifting around. It'll be interesting to see if they try to break out of this pocket or not. Actually, several strategic redeployments here by the Russians. Looks like a new unit just railed into Vilnia. And another new unit just railed west of Bialisk. Meanwhile, they're moving some troops away from the Austro-Hungarian border over there. They're reinforcing and digging in troops inside the pocket, which I think actually plays into our favor, because these units all turned dark green, which means they've actually used all their movement points for this turn and will not be able to move against our encircling troops. And so that is a very good thing for us. Meanwhile, Allied destroyers are making moves against our submarines here along their convoy routes. We have one submarine here in the northern convoy route. We moved one submarine south of Ireland to the convoy routes there. I don't have very many submarines yet. Hey, coffee filter. Whoa. GPUs with coffee... What? Meanwhile, the Allies are attacking these German troops here in a little bit of a salient here to the west and south of the Verdun area. They didn't destroy it, at least not yet, but they did pretty badly shake it up. The British, French are attacking the Belgians near Ypres. The Belgian Corps continues to hold out strongly. Meanwhile, the Russians do attack to the west in this pocket, although they didn't actually... That's weird. A unit in the extreme west of that pocket there attacked a detachment of our troops as if they were driving toward... what do you call it? Driving toward Germany rather than trying to get out of the pocket in Poland, which seems like a bad idea, but it's what they did. Meanwhile, our detachment in... I don't even know, is that Latvia? Was attacked and damaged by Russian troops that are encircled there. I'm hoping Warsaw doesn't generate much in the way of any supply, and that the fact that they're encircled will truly cut them off. But the way cities work in this game, I'm a little concerned it's going to provide all the supplies they need, if not all of a substantial amount of supplies. That corps hung on in this little narrow salient over there, so they were able to hang on just barely by the skin of their teeth. At least I think, anyway. I'm assuming the turn is pretty much over. I will say I feel like the turns resolve themselves much quicker in Strategic Command World War I than they do in World War II. There's a fair amount of thinking around the naval side where you don't see a lot of stuff happening, but it doesn't seem like there's a ton of time taken on turns. And I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I remember it used to take like 15 to 16 minutes to get through all the Allied turns in Strategic Command World at War. Meanwhile, Bulgaria has joined the Central Powers and joined the war, so that's another Allied power on our side. We are interdicting the Indian convoys with our submarines. The blockade against Germany by the British is continuing. Presumably that'll have an impact on our national morale over time. Norway's complaining about the attack on their merchantmen by the Entente. The British lose 13 MPPs with attacks on their Indian convoys. Given the rise in nationalism sentiment in Italy, led by people like Gabriele D'Anzio, who are calling for war against us, we must maintain units at Trento, Klagenfurt, and Trieste. Were we to remove these units, then Italy could easily seize these locations, and the results would be catastrophic. So you can see here 3 new Austro-Hungarian garrisons were raised at Klagenfurt, Trieste, and Trento, hopefully to deter the Italians from attacking, although all these are is detachments. That's all they are. Since they are there, though, we are going to go ahead and we are going to dig them in. We're going to have them dig in on 3 sides, and we're going to have those entrenchments facing south. So that should help in the event of an actual attack by the Italians. Similarly, we're going to dig in our troops at Trieste, just beyond the border there, with some fortifications and entrenchments. And the same thing for our troops at Klagenfurt. So they're in the mountains, and now they're dug in as well. All right. Meanwhile, first things first, I guess, let's go ahead and take a look at the Serbian front. We are now up to the 2nd Army Corps at Uskeb, which is the final capital for the Serbians. There is nowhere else for them to retreat their government to. The troops here are dug in with 3 levels of entrenchment, so we are going to go ahead and attack them. First thing is we're going to attack them with the 1st Army Corps of Bulgaria. Bulgaria has joined the war on our side, and so they're going to make an immediate sacrifice for the war effort. That'll reduce the fortifications there to level 2. We'll move the 2nd Army Corps forward from Plodov, and we'll move a headquarters unit into Sofia. Meanwhile, we'll also move this garrison unit here, or this detachment to the south, the headquarters unit, into Sofia. The 3rd Army Corps is on the border with Romania. They will stay in place. And the infantry detachment at Plenev will also dig in, and Varna will also reinforce. So these units are going to be at full strength. We'll entrench facing north just because we have had a couple of reports of Romania being interested in the outcome in Austria-Hungary. So we want to make sure if they did decide to make a stab us in the back that we're ready for that. Meanwhile, we have a couple of different army units here. We're going to go ahead and deploy the 9th German Army Corps to the east of Uskeb behind these trenches, and we're going to go ahead and have them attack there. They don't actually do any damage, but it does reduce the fortifications to 1. And then the 8th Austro-Hungarian Infantry Corps will attack, and again, that'll reduce the fortifications down to 0. So these troops are no longer entrenched. To that point, we're going to go ahead and advance the... the 16th Army Corps in Nish, south to Uskeb. They'll attack. They'll do no damage, and that sucks. They did take some casualties, though. We'll also attack this Serbian or Montenegrin headquarters unit. And do no damage there either. The Montenegrin army at Pek is being attacked with our troops. We've gotten rid of their entrenchments. We'll move this German Army Corps south. We'll move these troops south as well. Meanwhile, the 3rd Corps of the Austro-Hungarian Army will attack at Pek, do a little bit of damage. That infantry detachment will also attack at Pek, do a little bit of damage. And so the third... Actually, this is the third Serbian Army Corps at Pek is holding out at about 40% strength, while... yeah. Okay. So we really need to try and get Serbia out of this war, because it sounds like Italy's about to enter the war, and we obviously want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And if it does happen, that we're not unable to defend our position there. Okay. All right, these destroyers are going to be placed. We'll put these subs just a little bit further out. Okay, so we have ships of the Austro-Hungarian Navy blockading Antavari and Durazo, a port of Albania and also Montenegro. Okay, so we won't finish off Serbia this turn. Hopefully we can take Uskeb next turn, however. I'm not forgetting Diplomacy Doom. I just got Bulgaria to join the war on our side. Okay, so that's the scenario in Serbia. On the Russian front, we really need to strengthen our troops here. It looks like the Russians are down to 4 and 5 supply respectively in this massive pocket that we've just built, but our own entrenching troops in the center of that pocket are not in good supply either. So we probably need to do some work to try and get a little bit wider of a front so we can get a few more supplies through the lines. So we're actually going to try and expand the line here. We're going to go ahead and have our aircraft bomb there. We'll have our troops entrenched here. Attack. Our cavalry here will move forward. Maybe that's not a good idea. We'll have these infantry attack. So it doesn't look like I could expand the front at all. Damn! I was hoping I could expand that front line a little bit, but it doesn't look like that's an option. Meanwhile, I'm hoping we can reduce the Russian troops in Radom. This is the most isolated of the pocket. It's actually in its own little mini pocket. So we'll go ahead and attack with our troops here. Doesn't look like our troops are going to be effective at attacking these guys at all. Great. Well, we didn't finish them. We did damage them pretty heavily, but we weren't able to actually finish them off. The 6th Austro-Hungarian Army Corps will move here toward Lublin. These troops that are in the pocket are going to reinforce. I'm just hoping they don't attack these guys, but I would like to reinforce this entire formation here. I'd also like to entrench them. I don't know what direction to entrench. Probably to prevent a breakout, but I'd love to do the Caesar thing where you entrench on both sides, because that would make more sense in my opinion. I'm hoping because we attacked the third Caucasus Mountain Corps and inflicted 30% casualties on them, that they are unlikely to attack. We also have the 20th Corps. We could actually rail these guys. over here. So we're going to put these guys... I don't know what's worse for... Move them to Johannesburg. They'll work on expanding the front. I am from the Great Lakes region, Sobotonic. I'm from Wisconsin. I lived in Wisconsin for about 28 years in my life. All right. Attack those troops. I can't operate these troops because they're not on a rail line that goes anywhere. We'll move these guys north to Riga. We'll take the troops in Riga and we'll operate them over here to the south. We're going to send this cavalry as well over here. A large battle is sort of forming up in this region. Okay. All right, we're going to reinforce the troops at Riga to full strength. And these troops over here near Vendiva, or however you pronounce that. Now, I don't know if their supplies will get worse. It looks like our supplies here will stay about the same. But I don't know if the enemy supplies will get worse. They are surrounded, but there is a... Oh, okay. So part of the issue, I think, is that Warsaw and Ivangrad are secondary supply centers, which I think means they do produce supplies for the troops that are cut off here. I don't like that kind of a mechanic. I understand there's places on the map where supply does have to generate, but it just seems like a little bit of a... I don't know if lazy is the right word, but it does seem like a little bit of a cheap way to just be like, yep, supply magically arrives. Meanwhile... let's entrench these guys facing north. These guys are going to switch the entrenchments over to the east. And these guys are going to set their entrenchments in this direction. All right, so we have a new front line from the Galatian oil fields to Tarnopol. This German corps of troops is going to fully reinforce, spending most of our money in Germany on reinforcements this turn. But one would hope there's not a breakout attempt next turn. I could move here. This will probably invite attack if I do that. But it might actually prevent the troops from breaking out. I think we'll keep our troops largely in place, though. Wisconsin? I don't know what that really means, but okay. All right. So that's the Russian front. We already did the Serbian front. It'd actually be really interesting if we could rail... We could. Theoretically, we could rail some of our Bulgarian troops to the front in Russia. Meanwhile, this corps here in a bit of a salient is going to fall back to Aachen, so they've got a chance to reinforce. These troops here are dug in, and they have supply, so we're going to go ahead and strengthen them. We'll lose a little bit of experience. Antwerp being the capital. All right, we're going to fall the Belgians back. Okay. Meanwhile, we're going to change these entrenchments to three-sided. Oh, they are three-sided. Rotate that way, I guess. So I'm going to surrender the city of Ypres. I'm going to move the core of Belgian troops into Antwerp because that's the capital. And so we kind of reposition our front line a little bit. Meanwhile, these troops are going to remain in place. How much morale? So if I do one reinforcement, they're at 86, 84. That drops to 88 readiness, 84 morale. Wait, really? So 89, 90. 92, 90. Okay, so actually maintaining troops in place if they're only receiving minimal reinforcements is probably actually preferable to pulling troops out of the front line and then moving them forward. That's good to know. Meanwhile, the troops that were in the salient were also apparently not dug in. So that's probably one reason for their struggles. Okay, so we're going to reinforce all the troops in our line that we can. Again, it is going to spend pretty much all of our points. We're not going to have anything for diplomacy here. I really need to move an army headquarters to the east as well. I could move this Belgian corps out to the west as a way to buy a little bit of breathing room, I think. The thing I don't know is, do the Belgian troops keep fighting once Belgium surrenders? Because historically the Belgians remained in the war. But if they disappear, does anybody know, do the Belgian troops disappear if Belgium surrenders? Or do they keep fighting? Because if they keep fighting, I don't see any reason to pull them back. But if they don't keep fighting, then I don't want to, like, not use them. I'm going to send my subs out, kind of acting as scouts. I think we're going to initiate a major naval battle here. In an effort to break the blockade, perhaps? So I just scouted out the northern blockade line. There's a lone enemy light cruiser in the east. There may be additional ships further west towards Scapa Flow, but I think we are going to deploy our main fleet forward here, and we're going to use subs as our scouting force, and we'll see what can come of that. Groggy, I have heard of the Blue Max mod. I have not yet downloaded it, so I probably will do that in the next, I don't know, couple days. All right, so for the Austro-Hungarians, I think we've probably done everything we need to do at this point. We have $300 left. So for Austria-Hungary, we have 4 diplomatic chits remaining. I think it's cost $150 to try and convince the Ottomans to join us. I don't want the Netherlands to join us. That's actually kind of funny. The U.S. is nowhere near joining. Italy is nowhere near joining yet either. So I think the real desire here is probably to spend. But honestly, I'd rather. I know we can do diplomacy, but this turn with 300 remaining, Austria-Hungary is already investing heavily in infantry warfare, infantry weapons, artillery weapons. Is mobility important? What's production technology? Decreases research cost. Let's do this. Let's invest in spy technology. And then probably trench warfare. So we'll do that. That leaves us with 164. Is that enough to buy a new unit? I don't think it is, actually. So if I purchase an Austrian... Oh, an Austrian corps is less than that. So it's only 135. So we'll do that. We're going to raise a new Austrian corps. It'll be ready in March of 15. Meanwhile, Germany has new units to deploy. The König, a dreadnought battleship. Another U-boat that we can use in our offensive against the British. 2 German infantry corps, both of which we're going to deploy in the east. Not on the front line, because that's not advised. But they will be close enough to immediately provide useful service next turn. We have a couple of armies here. I'm going to move one of these guys at Marienburg toward Thorn, I think. And the guy at Tilsit will remain here. We need a third army corps in the east. Meanwhile, the Ottomans have 160 points. We're going to spend another one for them on infantry warfare. And then we're also going to spend one on them for trenches. So they're spending 695 on research, the Austrians 750 and the Germans 750. Okay. So I think that's going to do it for this turn of January 1915. The Austrians have a little bit of money left, but none of my ships are in port. So I'm not going to do anything there. We're going to move this headquarter unit forward from Sarajevo to the front line. Hopefully it'll improve supply a little bit. Alright, that's actually, this convoy route looks dead. It's not currently active. So we're going to move this Austrian sub here, the U-5, south of Italy. Oh boy. There's a British battlecruiser, the Indomitable, is based out of Malta. So we just detected that. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this turn, so let's move forward to the next one. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and wrap this episode up. We've gotten through December, we're into January, we're about to move into February, and then actually March, because apparently the time scale on this game, it seems like it shifts. So the August turns seem to take 2 weeks per turn, and then you could end up fighting again like at the end of August, so you had like 2 turns in August, but now it seems like it's 1 turn per month, and one of the turns is the AI and one is your turn. I'm not quite sure I understand the time scale in this game. It seems to shift based off of what the game's trying to model, which is a little bit confusing and disorienting, but overall still really enjoying the game. We're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Hope you've enjoyed the series so far. Not a ton has changed. The Russian front looks good, the Serbian front looks good, and the Western front against the Allies is still going reasonably well. Until next time, however, guys, this is the Historical Gamer, as always, saying once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm out.